Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Suter, and with me today is 𝐒𝐿𝐷𝐷𝐷𝐿. 𝐒𝐿𝐷𝐷𝐷𝐿, how are you?
Outstanding.
Oh, good. Glad to
Taste
hear it.
testing.
It's been a while.
It's always good
Yeah.
when you get to taste test food.
You told me about that. I remember. So for everybody who doesn't remember or is new, we did just sort of a very basic course on emergency preparedness. I thought it was great as 𝐒𝐿𝐷𝐷𝐷𝐿 ran it. And one of the things that you had said, and I remembered this, taste all the, people just think you can buy freeze-dried food or food that'll be stored, MREs, whatever, and they don't realize there's a possibility you'll be allergic to something in there. So you actually have to try it if you want to be prepared. So when you said you were taste
Yeah, it would
testing,
really
yeah.
suck being in a already very stressful situation, an emergency situation, no matter what it is. And you crack open your trusty little emergency food supply, take that first bite of food after a very difficult day, and you're like, oh my God, this tastes like rat turds wrapped in rotting bacon. And it's just like, oh, that is terrible. And that's all you have to look forward to through your times of troubles.
Yep.
You
So
should probably try everything before and then decide what you like and make sure you got lots of that and some comfort food, and also so you know how to make it, because sometimes you have to make sure you put the right amount in, and some of the directions are often kind of oversimplified for a lot of stuff. So you may end up that, hey, it says to call for 2 cups of boiling water. I put 2 cups of boiling water in there, wait 15 minutes, and it's really runny and it makes a mess, and I don't like that. But if I put 1.5 cups in there, it comes out just right. So it's all these things are really good to know before you might need anything. So
before it is just concerning that you're like, oh, I'm doing my end of the world preparation stuff, Nick. Nothing, nothing to see here. I was like, okay, that's good.
yeah,
Good to know.
Tonight's experiment is brought to you by ReadyWise. It's gluten-free. It's their Adventure Meals line of freeze-dried foods. They come in cool packets that are very easy to stack. You add 2 cups of water, stir, let it sit about 15 minutes or so. It's got 490 calories per pouch in it, and it is early dawn breakfast skillet with egg, sausage, peppers, and breakfast seasoning combined to make the perfect morning scramble.
Well,
because I
go.
accidentally opened this one instead of the actual lasagna that I had intended to make. So that's the one we get to try.
All right, and Daddy Jim says, is Titan still tied up in the basement? No, I tried that once, and I was just like, okay, and I used 16 different handcuffs, legs, shackles, the whole 9 yards, bolted it to the ground, and it took so long, I was just like, okay, I gotta take a nap, then we'll figure out what to do with them. And I went, took a nap, woke up, and I was in 16 shackles, bolted to the ground, and Titan just eating some grits. I don't know why grits, but he was in a bowl, and he's just like, so Nick, did we learn anything today? And I'm like, yeah, I had a spare set of keys somewhere. Anyways, yeah, so that's the answer to you. We don't mess with Titan. We don't. You guys can mess with Titan all you want. He has to be professional with you. If you tie him up, he'll get out, but he won't retaliate with me.
It's just that personal a little.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of, I said his name 3 times. We were talking about various S&M techniques, and Titan came up. So, anyways, welcome to the nightmare. We actually already did a show today, and we still have the thumbnail up. Trump's first win. It may be a win. It may not. It really depends on A, what happens, and B, what he's offered and how it works. But it's what I found interesting about it was, since you and I, 𝐒𝐿𝐷𝐷𝐿, first started really covering Trump when he was kidnapping people in Portland, which he's back to doing, it's the first time I'd seen him do something that really looked like a win, and one that he had earned himself. I had made the argument earlier today, and I saw you in the live chat in the end, so I think you've got some idea. I made the argument that, he basically applied essentially mobster tactics both to Hamas and with sort of a amnesty deal for Netanyahu, and that's how he got it done. And no other president would do that because we have ethics. But ethical or not, if it stops 2.1 million people from starving, and it got me thinking, and you and I had talked about this before. I don't want to get back into it today, but just the idea of consequences versus values. Do you give a genocidal tyrant a basically just say you'll be in under house arrest for the rest of your life, if in so doing you can save 2 million lives? That's one hell of an ethical dilemma. I don't know what you think, but it got me thinking of you because we've had this very discussion.
Yeah, and then it gets you into more ethical dilemmas, because you're like, okay, well, what are you willing to do to save those 2 million people and stick to your ethics of, people like this shouldn't be able to get away with it. So they have a convenient accident out of a 40th story window of the penthouse with completely sealed windows. Oops.
Yeah, or they accidentally trip and fall on a knife 42 times. That kind of,
Yeah.
Accidents happen. So
they accidentally have a negligent discharge while cleaning their weapon to the back of the head 15 times.
15 times, 15 negligent discharges, yeah. So, at any rate, there was a couple of videos that I've wanted to play, and I wanted to play them because I think most of you have heard them. Most of you know what's in them, but I think it's worth hearing. Now, the first one is, I've got to say, it's very strange. I've noticed, and I don't know if anyone else has noticed it. Well, I know other people have noticed it because they've said it on MSNBC. They've said it on other programs. I don't know if anyone else listening to this or if you've noticed this as entering, that Trump talks about death a lot more than he used to. And that's interesting. I remember when my grandmother started doing that. I remember when my father started doing that. And it's not in either case that there was a particular issue that was concerning them. It was just they were very keenly aware that they were at that stage where it was going to come for them at some point reasonably soon. And Trump's been talking about death, heaven. He did the most unhinged call-in to Fox last week. So let's see if we can get this and play this for you here. I wouldn't believe it's Trump, except it's so unhinged, it sounds exactly like him. So let's just, I want to turn this off, and hopefully the audio is still boosted. So
7,000 people a week from being killed. I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well.
Donald Trump is revealing what he claims is his motive.
I'm going to play that back again because that was awfully quiet. Here we go.
Just want to end it. I want to end it. We're not losing American lives. We're not losing American soldiers. We're losing Russian and Ukrainian, mostly soldiers. Some people, as missiles hit wrong spots or get lobbed into cities like Kiev and towns. But, if I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons.
Later.
Okay, so that alone is staggering because I think he really meant it. I think it was just one of those genuine moments from the guy. And whatever he says, I think it really means, hey. So his wife he's aware that he's not a very good guy, and he's starting to be concerned about it. And, so he's talking about like quantitatively, how do you get into heaven? How many lives do you have to save to make up for all the shitty things he's done in his entire life? So it's really bizarre to hear him doing that, but that seems genuine to me. So let's hear then Pam Bondi's response to that.
In the day, during a briefing, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked about Trump's interview, and she clarified she didn't think the president was joking.
I think the president was serious. I think the president wants to get to heaven, as I hope we all do in this room as well.
All right, so that was him talking about he wants to get to heaven, and that's one of the motivations for trying to, at the time, broker a peace deal with Israel and then with Ukraine, is so that he can save lives and get to heaven. And he called into Fox to say this.
It's like when you're sitting there really bored, but you can't really go anywhere and do anything. Or maybe you could, but you just kind of lack the motivation, and you just kind of doom scroll a little bit, and you stumble upon the AI shorts with Sasquatch and Downsy and all the whole gang, and it's like listening to that. I swear I'm expecting to see some kind of bad video AI of just weird ass stuff going on. To that soundtrack, and maybe he's genuine about that, but I don't think that he really knows what in the hell. I'm hoping he's talking about Christianity, because there's only a few religions that actually really talk about a heaven and name it heaven. So if he's talking about Christianity, he's kind of screwed anyway, no matter how many lives he says, because it's not works based. Getting into heaven isn't works based. It's one of the issues that so many people have a problem with. Have a problem with that, because it's like, dude, it doesn't matter how many people you save. It matters whether you actually believe with all your heart in Jesus. And so, I mean, there's so many different things. But yeah, he's going even more loony than the scary part is this. He's going loony. Yeah. And he's like actually going loony. When Biden started going loony, he just didn't know what was going on, and other people started doing stuff for him. I'm convinced of that. Yeah. That he just didn't know what was happening, and he's going loony and does weird things.
He's like drunk dialing. That's Fox too. He's drunk dialing his ex. He's like, "Hey, Fox. I hear you're missing someone at Fox and Friends. I get to see him every day. His name's ''𝐸𝐿𝐶𝐶, but I miss talking to him, I miss just these chats live before an audience of 1 million people. What do you say I loan you ''𝐸𝐿𝐶𝐶 for a little while? Would you like the Secretary of War to sit on your couch for a little while and talk about the good old days? Oh, God. Reminisce, yeah. So, that heaven rant, because he does whatever thought he has, he just says, and that heaven rant, clearly, it's on his mind. So there's been a lot of speculation about his health, in my view, and this is what we've said about all the speculation. It's just speculation. We've had some speculation, and we've said, look, maybe this, maybe that, and so far, he seems to, he vanished for a little while, came back, but there's, no signs of anything nefarious. So, what are you going to do? But this tells me it's on his mind, and this tells me his legacy is on his mind. And I just, like I said, I love how it's a utilitarian thing. It's just so him. It's just like, if I save 7,000 people lives a day, over the course of the war, it's like, that's how he's looking. He's like, do you see me, Jesus? Do you see me saving lives? I'm brokering peace in the Middle East. Which, again, by the way, I think makes him the
he's
Antichrist.
He's gently saving them.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, it's like, one, you're not responsible for taking any of those lives, and you wouldn't be responsible directly for saving any of those lives. Only tangentially would you be involved in that and convincing people to stop murdering people. Now, I mean, I guess you could say that's valuable because there's people who aren't, dying. But did you maybe ask some of the people involved in that whether they thought it was worth risking their lives to stop that? Because we wouldn't have an America today if people didn't say this was something worth risking our lives for. So we might want to talk to some of those people as well to find out if they even want him to do that.
And not for nothing, I've joked about whether or not getting into heaven is a question of utility. But if it is, I would imagine you have to deduct every war you started too, and killing a whole bunch of people in the Caribbean with, extrajudiciously just bombing the living daylights out of fishing boats that are unarmed with civilians, and just saying, "Yo, bro, could you get a Tomahawk missile onto that ship real quick?" I mean, I think that would count against you. I don't know, I'm not a minister. I don't know Christianity that well, but I think that counts against you. I could still be wrong. So
as good old Captain Jack would say, oh, well, now that we've established that my theory is sound, now we're just haggling over price.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and Dorito said that. Yeah, he's actually, what he's going to do is he's the best negotiator on the planet. Didn't you hear? He's going to just go up and chat with St. Peter and say, okay, what's it going to take to put me into heaven? It can be any heaven. There's got to be a parcel down there on the side somewhere. It doesn't need to be beachfront. I'll negotiate that later. It doesn't need to be the new Gaza that I'm planning. Oh, dear Lord. Well, so we've got right now that is holding a peace deal. What we know is that apparently it looked at first and they had said that all aid had stopped flowing into Gaza. It appears now as if that is untrue. The International Red Cross has said that it has been allowed in. And there are reports that about half of the aid is continuing into Gaza. That is not enough, but when you have a famine, holy smoke, is that a good start. So the holdup has been that they want the dead bodies of the hostages that did not survive. They have gotten 4 back, and it appears that it has been confirmed that they are, in fact, genuine. So Hamas is not trying to sneak fake bodies or anything like that, and appears to be making a genuine effort to hold up their end of the peace deal. So as of this moment, to the best of our, yes, I did just say, dear Lord, don't you? The older I get, the more Jewish I seem to get to. I'm like, oh, dear Lord, what am I going to do? I'm turning into an old Jewish woman. I have no idea why. It was not what I expected, nor was I told to expect when my parents were, teaching me about growing up. Thanks for derailing me. So
I didn't have to say anything.
Yeah, you didn't. You're just letting the live chat. This is what happens when I start reading the live chat. I just get completely derailed by just random things. He just asked.
What is it? All those really big YouTube channels always talk about? It's like, the live chat's just kind of like the sort of the Wild West. Get in there. Live chat's there for the viewers, not for the show necessarily. And I mean, we use our live chat, but so if you talk to any of the really big people, they're like, don't even look at it. Keep it closed. You put your people in place to try and moderate the place, and then just leave it go. That way you don't get derailed and you get flustered, and you don't start saying weird things and make us think that perhaps maybe you're losing your marbles, and maybe we should get you a pudding cup and put you in the corner and start managing you.
Excuse me, Mr. Co-host, as in like secondary, needs to remember his place. I never had marbles to begin with. All right.
Oh,
wait, I'm
yes,
pretty sure that's not
trying to.
Wait, no,
some grace.
That might not have been the argument I wanted to make. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot more gray here than there used to be. Yeah, well, I should learn to stay out of the live chat, but my memory has returned enough now that I can at least sort of remember what we were talking about, especially with the helpful co-host who can prompt me and remind me what it was we were talking about. I actually do remember. So before,
interesting to see if the actual peace holds for any length of time, because I have a feeling that that Hamas doesn't probably have access to all of the remains, probably even not through any of their own necessarily fault. And we're going to see if the hardline of Israel, that they must all be returned and promptly, is actually going to tear everything apart. So we're anxiously awaiting.
And that depends on what Trump offered Netanyahu. If Trump said, listen, I will go to bat for you with the Knesset, I think it's pronounced, with their parliament, I will go to bat and say that a condition for remaining allies is that you, the great leader, gets pardoned for everything that you've done, and this bogus, investigation against you stop. If it fails to stop, we will give you asylum in the U.S., which is where his family's living right now anyway. If that's what he offered, which I hope it's what he offered, believe it or not, because the alternative's bad. If that's what he offered, and if Benjamin Netanyahu took that, which is slightly risky because it may be that they'll figure that out and arrest him before he can leave. He'll be like Bernard Law, literally on the plane with the police chasing him with a warrant for his arrest. That was Cardinal Bernard Law as he got out of Boston for having hidden the sex abuse scandal for the church. Then he gets into the U.S. and he's fine. All right, that's the first alternative. We don't know what he offered him. The other possibility is he said, look, there's no way they'll be able to get all the dead bodies back. You can just start the war, keep your war cabinet, and go back and start killing them. Knowing his general approach to things, I would be much more inclined towards that. Knowing the fact that he actually does seem to be trying to genuinely end war, and that's just one of the few, he's got only 2, maybe 3 characteristics tops that are, in my view, decent about him, and one of them is he seems genuinely interested in ending wars. So I'm a little less inclined to think that he offered Netanyahu, well, gee, you can start this back up again. Netanyahu may have just thought of that on his own. Netanyahu's not stupid, and that's a pretty easy plan to come up with. But at any rate, yeah. So I think we'll see. The other thing that got mentioned in the live chat and is going on, so there are several groups vying. Right now, Yasser Arafat's nephew has returned. He's in the West Bank now. He's headed to Gaza, and he has said that he is prepared to lead. It's curious to know what that means, since to the best of my knowledge, nobody asked him to lead. He just showed up and said, I'm ready. Here I am. Nephew of Yasser Arafat.
Yeah. Adding an Arafat to the situation always makes things better.
Yeah, it's but there are multiple groups vying for control. One of the things that Arafat said, which is in fact true, which is that Hamas at some point, and he meant now, needs to start demilitarizing and needs to become a political entity instead of a military one. Hamas is the only military entity that the Palestinians have. And at the start of this war, a lot of Americans were like, well, we need to wipe out all the Palestinians. And they didn't differentiate between Hamas and the Palestinians. And many of the Palestinians hate Hamas or at best see it as a necessary evil because it's the only thing that keeps them from getting wiped out. Having said that, it's also the thing that draws a lot of fire towards them and gets them wiped out. So they're not necessarily very pleased with it, but Hamas does draw from Palestine, and especially if both your parents are killed and you're a young boy, Hamas, A, may be your only option, and B, may suddenly become a very appealing option when Israelis just murdered your family. So they have an interesting relationship. But Hamas now has several other groups vying for power. We don't know if the groups are military or political in nature. We do know that Hamas has been taking their leaders and executing them in the streets. They've just been dragging them out. Hamas has now seized control of all of the area that has been returned by Israel. So as Israel has backed up to the lines where they said they would back up to, so Israel has kept its deal so far, Hamas has expanded into that space. Ostensibly, one reason to do this is to prevent Israel from doing exactly what we were just talking about, which is restarting the war and just going right back in. At this point, Israel is actually far more drained than they care to admit. Their reservists are tired, exhausted. The whole war and they all want the war over. Everyone in Israel wants the war over. So Hamas, however, is dramatically weakened. So whether or not they can do that, whether they'd be able to repel Israel for any length of time, nobody knows. But they're expanding into this space. It looks more like they're expanding to take it over, and that they're going to create a Palestinian state with Hamas as the leadership. That's what it looks like. We don't know. In Time did call Hamas for an interview, but our calls were not returned. Any thoughts as entering?
Should have let me made that call. We totally have the leadership of Hamas on the show right now. Had you let me call?
Yeah, I know.
I might have even been able to get an Arafat to throw in there.
Don't brag, Jesus. You know, after that Barack Obama interview, it's just like you land one really hot interview and all of a sudden, like, you're smoking. Okay, fine, I get it. Daddy Jim, 10 pound British, 10 pounds British. Is it British sterling or 10 pounds? 10 British pounds sterling. I believe that is it. 10 British pounds sterling. Love hearing the banter between you and Xandri. Great show. It's been a while, hasn't it? Either you've been busy or I was sick, so I had to cancel. It's been a little while. It is good.
Been a little while.
Yeah.
I mean, we did last week, but then there was I was in the middle of, I don't even remember what it was. I was on a weird schedule and not feeling well, and then before that, something came up. Yeah, it's been a little bit, but we're back, baby.
We are, and one of the things I lament is that you listen to a lot more of the right-wing media, and you understand right-wing media far better than I do. So I wanted to get your views on any number of things. The other absurdist thing right now is that we have on our Discord. If you go to our Discord, there's like some guy plowed into his cornfields, and I was like, dude, they're about to end corn subsidies. So you may want to watch what you're doing. But cut into his cornfield, said, Nobel Peace Prize Trump. If you build it, Trump will come. That's all. Like the farmer's just like, yeah, I'm going to be on air. To be fair, he got a lot of attention, but I do want to get to that. But I want to play one more clip before we do that. Now this clip really disturbs me. And I read it in the New York Times. I read it in a few other places, and you can read it. It was pretty prominent because it was for any other presidency, this would have been a presidency ending line, which was that he's actually only going to cut Democratic programs when they start slashing things during the shutdown. So it's like, that's it. It's a shutdown. I'm going to start slashing things, but only Democratic programs. Now, first of all, a lot of those programs passed with bipartisan support, so I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I don't think he knows what he's talking about. Well, I got some ideas. Let me rephrase that. Social Security, I guess. Maybe. Is he talking about Social Security? Because it's the Democrats who are most for that, but he's going to have a hard time just cutting that, or Medicare and Medicaid, because Republicans use that too. But having said that, the way he said it, and I'll play it, and then we'll get into the way he said it. Once I saw it on TV, I was. It looks so banal just the way he says it, but let's get into this. We'll put this up here, and we'll have a.
Despite all of the damage that it's caused, the shutdown has been, pretty damaging. I mean, it's not yet because it's early, but it gets a little bit worse as it goes along. And we'll be making cuts that will be permanent. And we're only going to cut Democrat programs. I hate to tell you. I guess that makes sense. But we're only cutting Democrat programs. But we're going to start that. And we have Russell can talk to you about it if he wants to. But we'll be cutting some very popular Democrat programs that aren't popular with Republicans, frankly, because that's the way it works. They wanted to do this. So we'll give them a little taste of their own medicine. But Chuck Schumer proclaimed this morning that every day gets better for them. No, every day it's actually getting worse for them. And they're having a rebellion in the Democrat Party because they want to stop. And if you saw all of Schumer's, I watched last night like 10 different times over the years, he said, you can't shut down government, you can't shut down. And now he's the one that shut it down.
All right, so that is Donald Trump on the shutdown. Yeah, what the fuck are Democratic? That was exactly the question we were asking. But that he was so brazen. I mean, at this point, he's sitting there in a cabinet meeting, And he's saying, well, it's a shutdown, so now I get to shut down anything I want. And I think it goes without saying, obviously, I'm only going to shut down Democratic programs. I'm not Republican programs we're going to keep. Obviously, it was just so. And I'm like, you don't understand how government works. You don't understand how anything works. And
That's not how this works.
That's
not how any of this works.
I know. So, what are your thoughts?
It doesn't surprise me that he would do something like that. I don't know how he gets away with it, but then, of course, I don't know how he gets away with several of the things that he's been doing. They're like on their face. What is that? Prima facie unconstitutional?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, look at the plain text of the Constitution. Do you have the authority to do anything with that deals with money, generating money, paying money out, any of that? No, you really don't. That's the legislature. It's like you are tasked with enforcing the law.
And just in case any president ever decided to get cute and say, okay, I'm not changing the amount, I'm just not sending out the money, I'm holding the money, they said, oh, that's called impoundment, and they created a separate law to say explicitly you can't do that either.
Yeah, I look at all this stuff and I see a lot of I obviously spend a little bit more time in right-wing circles, usually pulling my hair out because I'm like, that's a bad argument. That's a bad argument. Stop making that argument. That's not a good argument, and it's not even true. So it gets frustrating, especially with Trump, because I run across a lot of Trump supporters proudly proclaim that they're MAGA and that things are getting better, even when you can demonstrably show that it's not getting better. And that some of the proposed things coming up will probably make it quite a bit worse. And they've got their head in the sand. They're convinced that it's going to be better. And I don't know what they're basing this on. And of course, what is that famous saying? You can't reason somebody out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. Yep. And I personally have not come across anybody that I have watched carefully or interacted with that is an actual Donald Trump supporter, that I don't think they're just memeing or trying to be an edgelord or anything like that, or being a troll, that are genuine supporters. I don't think they reasoned their way into it. And mostly what it comes down to is, well, Trump would have been better than Kamala. And I thought that too, for probably about, 60 days? I don't even think it was that long. Oh no, it was about 60 days, but between when he actually got elected and when he took office. 90 days maybe tops. And then I'm like, I actually am not convinced of this, because he's starting to do some very troubling things, and I don't care who the president is. As soon as they start violating the Constitution and start trying to take on a lot more powers to the federal government, which I already think is way too powerful to begin with, I have a problem with that. So I'm sitting here going, I really don't know that he's made anything better at all. It's nice to see that perhaps maybe he was able to do something in the neighborhood of getting peace in the Middle East. But that doesn't really help people in the U.S. I mean, I realize that it can make you feel a little bit better that, hey, our country was involved in something good to try and save lives, especially when you have a literal genocide going on. Doesn't help if they completely collapse the country that you're living in. Yep. Or cause such a fundamental change in the country that you're living in that it becomes more or less kind of a banana republic dictatorial regime. I have a problem with that. And we're supposed to guard against that. And supposedly the people on my side, ostensibly my side, I really hesitate to claim half of conservatism, because I'm only half conservative. But ostensibly, the people over here are supposed to be using reason, evidence, fix reason firmly in her seat. Lovely quote from Jefferson, It's like we're supposed to be looking at the facts and evidence. Apparently, facts don't care about your feelings, except when we're talking about Donald Trump, apparently. So yeah, I have a huge issue with a lot of these people who are stalwart Second Amendment supporters, and then they go, "Yeah, go Trump," and it's like it's that ridiculous meme of America. It's like, do you have any idea what you're talking about? Have you looked into any of this? Do you know what the actual data says? It's like, have you looked? Have you read the Constitution, or is it just some flashy little book you saw over there and went, "Oh yeah, we should be"? Well, it says things that I like, so I'm going to support those things, without actually understanding what the separation of powers is. The very fact that the founders were terrified of a federal authority, so terrified that their first attempt at a government in the United States failed miserably because the federal authority was far too weak to actually do anything, and it ended up being just a joke. So they literally had to rewrite it to make the federal authority more powerful so that it would actually function. And now here you are, you're like, yeah, let's just start rounding up different state militias or the reserves out of the different states, and let's just start sending them to cities because we don't like what they're doing in their city. Even though there isn't a national disaster, the city hasn't asked for any help. It's like, that's kind of a city problem, and butt out, federal government. You know, I have a love-hate relationship with trying to listen to anything on the right, because they try and talk about sticking to principles of liberty, the maximal liberty for citizens, and then support things that I'm like, wait a minute, you shouldn't be supporting that. And if Kamala Harris was in office doing these things, you would be up in arms, possibly literally, but definitely figuratively, about all of these things. And at some point, a Democratic administration is going to be empowered, and they're going to have all of these tools that Trump has been working very diligently to take onto himself. And I have a huge problem with that. So I actually have to stop most days and say, okay, we're going to go back into some sort of fantasy world. Maybe we'll try and lighten the mood by listening to Sansa argue with her spaceship.
70% of all voting machines are Dominion voting machines. I shouldn't say all voting machines. The voting machines or the programs used to tabulate voting data are that are used in this country are Dominion. Dominion was just purchased by a right-wing MAGA conservative whose first order of business was to drop all of the lawsuits against NOA and N, and all of the news organizations and people, Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, everybody who lied and said that the election was stolen, that Dominion rigged its voting machines, and Dominion got a $700 million settlement with Fox News for that. I do wish they had continued to, but it's a business. They took the settlement instead of continuing on to win. I understand how and why, but now there hasn't been any real accounting by anybody, because Fox didn't have to admit culpability. The fact that they paid out a $700 million settlement strikes me as culpability. That's on the closer side of $1 billion. And that's now owned by a conservative, and I don't like conspiracy theories, and I like to try to think that people are gonna, even people, I hate it when people say, well, they're liberals, so they're gonna rig the election. It's like, fuck you, no, liberals don't rig elections, and we don't need to rig elections, and I've never thought that somebody who got into office previously got it. I didn't think Bush got in through a rigged election, but now I'm sitting here saying, he bought this service, he rebranded it so no one's going to realize it's the Dominion machines that everyone still had and previously had accused of being fraudulent, and he's going to, what is it they say, every accusation is a confession. He said he plans on staying in power. Steve Bannon has said he'll be on the ticket in 2028. and if he's on the ticket, he'll win. And now he didn't say it'd be at the head of the ticket, so there is another strategy that they may try. He comes in as VP, which ostensibly somehow gets him around the constitutional thing. It doesn't really, but it does. It does if you read the Constitution really quickly and don't actually try to understand what you're reading, because the VP has to be qualified for office, and if you're term limited, you're not qualified for office. At any rate. So
yeah, and then the people who are actually paying attention to this on the right,
yep,
they're like, no, this is brilliant. This is 40 underwater basket weaving chess, all together. It's like, well, that'll be the quickest way to make Democrats in favor of actual signed paper ballots again.
Oh God, yeah, I've heard that, and I heard somebody say too that this is how Trump is going to guarantee the Second Amendment, because now Democrats are going to start being pro Second Amendment. And I'm like, I agree, Democrats are going to start becoming pro Second Amendment, and you've seen that on the further left, and you've seen it encroaching into the center left, especially because it's the far left who are the ones who actually have to worry about violence in their general direction anyway, gay, trans, so on and so forth as you get further. So guns are becoming more popular on the left, but no, there isn't, other than you. There are very few Republicans and I know you don't identify as a Republican anymore. I'm using shorthand, but that should be made clear. I've met very few Republicans. Genuine conservatives do what you do, which is they say, hey, I'm pro-gun, and I'm pro-gun for a very specific reason, and I want everyone to be able to exercise that. So if you're a liberal, I'll show you where to buy a gun, I'll teach you how to shoot, I'll do all that stuff, because I'm a good citizen. So, but there are very few of those, I think, and I think most of them, especially the ones in power, do not want the left to be armed. And these protests have been as peaceful as they've been because the left in general isn't armed. When the right protests, it tends to look a little bit more like January 6th than it does what we've been seeing recently. I know a lot of generalizations into that quickly, but I don't think. I think an armed left is the last thing they want. And if the left starts arming, they're going to think, okay, how do we take all the left's guns while letting the right keep their guns? And if we can't do that, then let's just get rid of the Second Amendment because, and I forget what it was, but at one point in Germany, they started disarming all of the citizens, all of them, even the ones that were for 𝐒𝐤𝐬𝐿. They started disarming all of them. So I'm not sure that that's not coming up at some point. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I'm a little concerned about that, and people who are actually interested in the Second Amendment have all pointed out the same things, that Trump and his administration has not been particularly pro Second Amendment. They've paid a little bit of lip service to it, but then when you look at their actual actions, they have not followed through, and in some cases have actually done the opposite. In his first term, Trump was caught saying, "Oh yeah, we should definitely take the guns first and then due process," and that caused a big uproar. So he had to walk that back. So there's no evidence that they particularly care about the principles behind the Second Amendment at all. So yeah, that is definitely one thing that I could conceivably see happening, especially if Trump decides, I want to be king of America. I mean, he's going to have to do that because at some point, you're not going to be able to make an argument for any of this stuff at all. You're just going to have to come straight out and say, oh, no, I support the dictatorial overthrow of the United States Republic, because that's what ends up happening. So, yeah, I am concerned about that, and I genuinely encourage everybody to exercise their Second Amendment rights. One of the reasons for that was to, protect the Republic from all threats, foreign and domestic. The founders firmly believed that an armed populace may be necessary in a time when a government decides it's going to become tyrannical and it's going to do away with things like individual liberties and things like that, that the population may need to have arms in order to stop a government and disband that government and form a new one. It's like, well, that's not even controversial. I mean, that was a big sticking point.
Well, I think, I mean, the funny thing is, I think when you and I have had our discussions about the Second Amendment, I think for my part, and this is one of the sort of post-mortems I've seen on discussing how we got to where we are, and one of the things people say is, well, too many people got complacent. And we're going to have on, by the way, next week, Theo from Dictators versus Democracies, who I met during a volunteer stream last week, and he knows a lot about this stuff, and he and I had some interesting discussions. But one of the things that he said was that the we in the U.S. have gotten too complacent about the fact that we just sort of have inherited and can keep a democracy, and the reality is the natural tendencies are towards chaos or towards authoritarianship, because you don't have to work. If you're in an authoritarian dictatorship, life may suck, but you don't actually have to work to keep it on track. It's going to keep itself on track. A democracy, you have to work every day to keep going. You have to invest. You have to constantly fight the forces that are trying to undermine it and derail it. You have to vote. You have to, and the fact that our vote rate dropped to below 50%. It's like we just sort of assumed that, well, it's America. It's always going to be a democracy. But the founding fathers said, yeah, now you need to be able to defend it, because that's not necessary. And so when you and I had this, I'm just like, how is America as a democracy going to fall? The government's not written. I don't see the government taking, and here we are. And I was just like, oh, well, I didn't see that coming. Now, Mitch Anderson, drones don't count as guns, do they? That's no, they do not, to the best of my knowledge. But anyways, that was something I had been thinking about. I think you and I have each considered the other's arguments in different ways over the last couple of years, and that's just sort of one of the ways I've re-examined. Like, they really took very seriously that. And I have always heard this argument. It's been one of the more compelling ones. There's a counter to it, but you offered the counter to that. The argument was, okay, look, if every Jew had been armed, it would have been a lot harder to get them into the ghettos during the late 30s and early 40s. And my response to that is, well, what's an armed person going to do against a tank? Or what are they going to do against a modern military? And it's like, you may not stop them, but you'll slow them down, and you'll give them pause. And you'll have to make them work for it. Sometimes that's enough to make them give up and turn around. And if it's the case where it isn't, it's enough to slow them down. It's enough it could have saved lives. It could have slowed down how many people got to the gulags, or not the gulags, the concentration camps at what rate, and more would have been alive by the end of the war. And it would have given Hitler another front, a domestic front, that he'd have to have opened up if they had all been armed. They weren't. In part because they didn't see this coming any more than anyone tends to. So it's, do you think that's a fair? I realized I was giving your argument, but I always like that argument when I sit there and say, well, modern military, what's a gun going to do against a modern military? It may lose, but that's not the point. Is that accurate?
There's the redheaded comedian, and I just suddenly forgot his name. But he's got a comedy bit where he talks about, conservative Second Amendment supporters, and they're like, well, we need to have our arms in case the government becomes tyrannical and we may need to overthrow a government. And he's like, anybody who makes that argument doesn't understand how tanks work. Yeah. And I don't agree with it. I have a counter argument specifically for that. But it's still funny because on its face, you're like, yeah, what are some country hicks with AR-15s out in the country going to do against a mechanized brigade of infantrymen? Not a whole lot. However, the specific argument against that is being armed isn't a guarantee that you'll be able to overthrow a tyrannical government. Absolutely no guarantees there, because the government controls a hell of a lot of power, and you're going to be fighting uphill, just like the founders were fighting uphill against the strongest nation on earth at the time. So yeah, there's absolutely no guarantee there. What is a guarantee is if you're unarmed, you're not going to stop it.
Yeah.
I see so many people talk about, well, why aren't some of these, as Trump would call it, some of these hellholes on earth, why aren't the people standing up for their own selves? Why aren't they overthrowing their own governments? It's like, why do we need the U.S. to go in and intervene in any of these areas? And I'm like, well, because they have no means by which to do so. They would just be death. So, if they were all armed, would they? Would we have the same outcome? Well, we wouldn't have the same outcome, but it may not have ultimately changed much. We may have ended up with an equivalent outcome. However, you definitely would have had a lot more resistance. You could have had a lot more meaningful resistance. You could have raised enough of a ruckus to bring outside attention to the problem, and people going, hey, look at what happened at Ruby Ridge, look at what happened in Waco, and whether you agree with the people who got completely kind of slaughtered in that, the response of the governmental agencies was overhauled both times because of public outrage of what they had done. It's like, yeah, we have the full might of the U.S. military against its own citizens, armed or not. Yeah, they can wreak a hell of a lot of carnage, especially considering we've spent the last 25, 24 years, more or less, fighting counterinsurgencies. I mean, our military is pretty damn good at doing that now. And I shake my head at some of the, tactical cosplayers that think because they went down and bought their $400 AR that they're somehow going to be, deadly in the jungle at night. And I'm like, I don't think you understand how tactics work at all, because you're not. And maybe stop and learn something before you get yourself killed, or on a terror watch list. Let's put some actual realism in here and do some actual research and try and make your decisions based off of actual reality. So the trying to or the fact that we allow citizens to be armed doesn't mean that you're going to be guaranteed to stop a tyrannical government, but it is guaranteed that you'll lose if you aren't.
I think that's the best way that's definitely the best way to put it. Mine was more of an Overton window argument. It at least pushes the window in a positive direction. But yeah, thank you for that. All right, I'm going to answer a question, then I'm going to ask Xandring a question, and because this one was fascinating, and this is the kind of sort of back and stuff that I kind of like to try to figure out. That's one of the things we talk about on In Time. But there was a question, In Time, this was from Broadcast Cat. Can we have more notice, please, in front of my PC and still miss the start time? Yes, I'll work on that. Basically, in general, I try to put these up. I used to try to put these up by 11 a.m. in the morning. In part, that's because Titan, aside from being a mod, also shills us on a number of channels, and it's easier for him to both mod and to shill if he knows ahead of time when the shows are. These are the regularly scheduled shows, so I've been getting a little lazy about it. I literally, I didn't just move. I moved in the last couple of months. Still getting settled in, it entirely my bad. So we're going to try to get back to the, no later than 11 a.m. I have the show up, and you will see it listed. Titan will have a link by then, because he's been good about not complaining, but I'm aware it's easier on him if he gets it earlier, and it's easier on you guys. So entirely my bad. I've just fallen into a bad habit, especially with the scheduled shows. And with the non-scheduled shows, it's like there's very little I can do about it. It's like, oh, well, we just invaded a country. I didn't know, Trump didn't call me and say, hey, Nick, I plan on, so, we don't know. But that's it. What I'm going to do is But right now we have 2 scheduled shows, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. both. It's in time, obviously, today, and it's downtime with Commander McMillan, and then the rest is based on what's going on. But although I want to ask, did you also mean like more time on your notifications? Because we've sped up, and it's all algorithm stuff. It's back-end stuff. I'm not going to get into it. It's going to boil a living day. We've sped up the time on the beginning and how long it takes for you. I need to get into the Hegseth groups. Yes. I need to get an invite into the Hegseth group chat just so that like the whole government can see in time. There's a plan.
Apparently that isn't overly difficult.
No, it's not. And I'm actually a little nervous because I get the feeling that I'm one of the ones that Hegseth will be there like he's an enemy of this country, kind of, Anyways, and of course a flaming goat. At someday it's going to be more than a year. We're going to be back to the goat for next year before people let go of the goat from last.
Well,
so
it's coming up here in just a few short months.
It is. I know. And we'll cover it again.
2 months away from the goat.
We'll put the goat. We'll put the goat back up.
You're gonna have to take out that little. You're gonna have to take that really cool calendar clock and stuff out. You're gonna have to take that little window out, and you're gonna have to put the live feed of the goat.
Yep, we're gonna need our goat feed, goat cam. I'm just the only thing that worries me is that we are gonna be doing like a and.
We're going to be doing a show with a guest, and the goat's going to go up in flames.
I hadn't even thought of that. I was like, yeah, we have a guest that we get Hodges back, and we're talking to Ben Hodges. The goat goes up in flames, or we're just sitting there going, the cruise ship struck an iceberg, and all 2,000 lives were lost.
It sinks.
And people were just sitting there going like, what about the dumpster fire cam? Yeah, we got that. That's we actually just still haven't clipped that just for the. I just love the dumpster fire. It's literally a dumpster and it's just rolling by and it's on fire. That wasn't the Rittenhouse one, but it was around that time. So yeah, I'll we'll get better about that. We've got a couple of different balls in the air right now, and that's one of the areas that's been suffering, so my apologies. Although I did want to ask Broadcast Cat, if Broadcast Cat is still around, if they meant more notification in the day, which I do need to do, or longer. We have the standing by screen that has the quotes and has the live chat and all that other stuff, and that's just so people get the notifications and can all be in here at the same time. That's actually really not good for the algorithm, and the reason is it adds time to the show. The show gets longer, but nobody rewatches it. So for the rewatch, when people want to see our show and we get 100, 200 rewatches, they start after that. So unless we were to cut that for every show, and that's just, I don't think that's a reasonable thing to do at this point. Unless we cut that for every show, our shows are longer, but they're getting less watch time per length because we're giving our audience time to show up. So we're trying to balance that. So talk to us in general on the Discord if you'd like to see a change in how we do it, and we will try to accommodate, because we're nothing if not accommodating. Right, Islandering? Right?
Sure.
Perfect. All right. So UTV and Ham gifted 1 membership. Thank you, sir. Your good deed for the day. I appreciate it. We always appreciate everyone's support, and that's in addition to Daddy Jim's £10 British sterling, 10 British pounds. Oh God, it's gonna bug me. I'm gonna have to go memorize it. So you and I were chatting, and you had told me about military requisitions, and you scared the bejesus out of me. So thank you for that. And since I don't anything that someone does to me that's negative, I have a tendency to want to pass on to my audience, who must have a masochistic streak if they're watching the show. I figured I would ask you about that so that you could explain it to our audience.
This is the point where you need to pull out your aluminum foil.
Okay.
Possibly 10. It may still be 10 in your region. It works as well. This is probably about one full roll's worth. And just go ahead and just wrap that around your head and just keep wrapping. Probably helpful if you don't cover your eyes, nose, and mouth with it, but cover everything else.
Okay.
So the DLA, which is the Defense Logistics Agency, they are in charge of ordering supplies for, well, the Defense Department. So anytime the military wants or needs new things, like say they're changing uniforms and they need new uniforms, well, the DLA is the government agency that goes out and sources all of that stuff, puts in orders, takes contracts, etc. Right now, I'm actually a little sad because my total level of disposable income is a little lower right now. Thank you, Trump.
Yeah.
Or I would be trying out some different MREs right now, because MREs are dirt freaking cheap right now, because DLA is dumping all of the military's MREs that are anywhere close to their inspection date. So the market has been completely flooded with cases of MREs. You can get full cases of MREs for as low as $40 a case now. Those used to be upwards of $100 to $150 per case just a few short years ago. So they're dumping all of them, and because they're getting new ones. Also, there's a few companies that I hate to say involved with. It makes it sound like I'm way more in with the company, but that I've had conversations with a few different companies that provide different things, including medical kits, like high value medical kits, serious ones for like actual bleeding and blowout and things that you really save people's lives with. They're having a really difficult time because obviously there's wars going on, and the DLA now just started ordering a bunch of other stuff. There's some manufacturers that do like nylon gear, and you can't get something like, say, Marpat, because DLA has ordered enough materials to outfit 3 times the Marine Corps. And for anybody who doesn't know, Marpat is the camo pattern that the Marines use in their uniforms.
So they've got enough to outfit enough soldiers that is 3 times the number of current Marine Corps soldiers.
Yes. They're ordering enough. It seems, just looking through all of the stuff that the DLA has been ordering, it looks like the DLA is either expecting to expand the Marine Corps by up to 3 times. Well, I would say 2 times, because one of those times would be replacing everything the current Marine Corps has, plus having 2 more. I guess you could say that they're stocking up just so they don't have to order things because maybe tariffs. That's the low end of going, hey, well, maybe they're just thinking ahead going, yeah, well, we know Trump's going to put tariffs in. This stuff's going to be a lot more expensive in 5 years. So we're just going to go ahead and order 3 times the stuff that we actually need, just so that we have a good cushion there. I suppose that's possible. The DLA doesn't usually operate that way because it's a government program, and no government program works that way. They don't have that value of forethought usually when they're operating. So they've never done that before. It is not their policy to do it that way either. So that's probably unlikely, but not outside the scope of possibility. So what other reason would the DLA need to have 3 times the materials to outfit the Marine Corps? And the running theory, and this is speculation,
wild.
The fact that they've ordered all of, the fact that they've ordered all of this stuff isn't speculation. That's public record. It's known that they have. However, the speculation part is why? Are they expecting to expand the Marine Corps by 3 times? Or are they expecting that the materials that they're using are going to be worn out rather quickly and need to be replaced quickly, i.e., there's going to be a major war that is going to involve the Marine Corps?
So they gather,
all of these orders are set in the next 3 years. All of these delivery dates are within the next 3 years. So I don't know. I don't think anything particularly interesting is probably happening 3 years from now. But apparently, in about 3 years, something is expected to happen, according to some government planning officials at the DLA. And I don't know what they know that we don't know, but they're just indicators along the. I get worried when the DLA starts ordering a lot of stuff, especially when they start dumping old stores such as the MREs this quickly, because they have flooded the market, and they're rapidly replacing stuff and expanding tremendously. Like, it's staggering when you think about the amount of materials that they're ordering up that we can't get on the civilian market anymore. I mean, we're getting back orders of up to 3 years now.
And that's it. They're getting so much stuff so rapidly that it's going to take 3 years to fill, which they seem to have thought about. And the MREs, so they're replacing them with MREs that 3 years from now they won't need to be inspected. You know they'll be good, so you're going to have new solid stuff, so that it's not anything. It just makes life easier if you happen to be at war. The MREs are taken care of. Anything that was close to its inspection date's already gone.
Correct.
Okay. I will point out, Trump has repeatedly said, and it's been a bit of a throwaway line, and it's been tied to Zelensky, but he recently found out, and it's interesting because you can track when Trump learns shit. It's just like, yeah, you didn't know? It's like, apparently this is illegal. It's like, yeah. But, the Bitcoin thing, we didn't cover that. Oh, yeah, I may skip that. Somebody made a huge amount of money by shorting Bitcoin stocks for basically 12 hours, up to 7 minutes before Trump announced that he was doing his tariffs in China, and then dumped all the short positions about 10 minutes after Trump made that announcement. Mildly suspicious. At any rate, I forget how much they made, but a huge amount. Getting back to Commander had pointed this out, which is whenever a new commander-in-chief comes in, they want to put their stamp on the uniform, whether it's switching to a beret or then switching back to caps, switch it, the colors, the whatever it is that they want to do. They want to put their own stamp on it. But this idea of completely refitting the entire combat uniforms is, the 3 times is he's anticipating something. What he has said, again, originally from Zelensky, then he learned that Winston Churchill did it, where he said, apparently you don't have to have elections during a war. And the way he said it, he wasn't joking. It was just like this realization that, hey, if we're in a war, it can be a small one, but you don't have to have elections in that case. So he's thinking ahead. Elections are already a burden in his mind. He's trying to figure out how to get rid of them, and he has figured out that if you have a war, you don't need them, and he has said it and put it that way. It is true.
Now, stop getting wild and crazy out there. I already warned that we needed a full roll of aluminum or tin foil for just pointing out the fact that the DLA has ordered this stuff and the time frame in which they've ordered it, and then gave the speculation of what possible things may prompt something like that, which truly speculation. You need the hat for that speculation. You have just went way off the deep end here, dude. To suggest that Trump may possibly start a war someplace and is gearing up especially the Marines, for some sort of actual open conflict so that he may suspend elections in a time of war. Man, you're a crazy nut job. I'm glad you said it, not me.
Probably better than I said it. At this point, he's all but said. He said you'll never have to vote for anyone again, and he has said, and this is another one that's actually worth just getting in the archive, so we've got it. Apparently, you don't have to have elections if you're in a war. This was a new thing for him, and it wasn't that the reverse. Zelensky did not want to suspend elections. He had to suspend elections, and he's sitting there going like, how are we as a country going to have elections when 1/3 of our country is occupied, and so they can't vote, and 1/3 of our country has left the country, so they can't vote, and everybody who's left is fighting a war, so it's already a burden for them to vote. How are we going to have an election? The war needs to end first. Winston Churchill suspended elections during the Second World War. So it's been done before by valid democratic countries. And for Trump, he's just like, oh wow, you don't have to, if just as long as you're in a war. Wow. And it's just like, oh, the way he said that just scares the living. So between that and the procurements, yeah, thank you. I'm so glad. Yes, our banter is very entertaining. I'm glad when we banter back and forth. I don't go into my bed and weep into my pillow all night. I rejoice. Thank you for having this banter with me.
I was trying to make your life a little bit better. I was just simply pointing out, hey, we have some what we call indicators that by themselves don't really mean much. It's like, hey, this is an interesting fact that's happening. Oh, here's another interesting fact that is happening. Oh my God, here's another interesting fact. This is a terrifying fact. When you start lining them up, we can kind of sort of start speculating about, well, if taking all of these indicators, things that we've actually observed, things that are really happening, and try and fit all of those things into a puzzle of a reason as to why and where it may be leading to. And you start kind of arranging these things around. And unfortunately, when we do that in the case of today, and we start looking at all of the things that have been said, all of the things that have been tried, all of the, especially the DLA acquisitions and orders that have been put in, and you go, where is this leading?
Yeah.
And every answer with a few benign possibilities that aren't impossible but are incredibly unlikely, none of them are good.
No.
So I just wanted to share my depression with you, because I don't think that we spread that around a lot. But I figured somebody once said that it really doesn't matter. I think they were speaking about when you're talking to babies. Maybe it was 3 Men and a Baby, I think actually is where this quote comes from. I don't know the exact quote, I'll paraphrase. That it really doesn't matter what you say, it's the tone of voice in which you say it. So I try to be upbeat when we're speaking of these things, and just say, hey, just thought you might like to know.
And we all appreciate that. Thank you. I'm yeah.
Inspection dates. Somebody had it went whizzing by in the furious live chat that I can barely keep up with. Had wondered about inspection dates on MREs, and generally speaking, if you're like in a time of war or some constrained resource, that's the time at which they're supposed to go through and inspect all of the MREs for any damage, any bloating, etc. Get rid of any of the questionable looking ones, so that we're not poisoning all of our armed forces. In the real world, and generally functioning since World War II, possibly Vietnam, it means that the DLA just dumps it into the MILSERP market and they order new stuff. So it's not exactly an expiration date, though it's being treated mostly, in at least recent memory, as the expiration date for MREs. They will last significantly longer, but the inspection date is the point at which they need to be inspected to make sure there hasn't been any damage or spoilage, and also the point where nutritional value begins to drop off. So that's the number one reason why they usually just get rid of them. So when you go out and you buy actual genuine MREs out in the civilian market, they're all going to be either at or very near their inspection date, which is the only reason you get them. That's how that works.
All right. Well, we're going to keep an eye on it. Commander had mentioned one thing, that just to keep on the tone, I think this is interesting, which is if Trump tries to rig the midterms, which they're already rigging in one way or another, but a blatant rig in terms of actually tampering with the votes, that's when, if you're going to see a civil war, that's when you're going to see it break out. And I think he's got a point. So, we may not get to. And I'd like to remind everybody, we're not through year one yet. We're not through year one. Yeah.
That's not the only danger either.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, it's like we could fall short of an actual civil war, and yet still have a not very good outcome. With essentially populist uprising or kind of a social collapse, because if this comes to light and it doesn't spark an actual civil war, you're still going to have one hellacious blow to the perception of the rule of law, and that perception that we have the rule of law is very likely to be shattered, or at least is a good possibility that it could be shattered. And once the general population no longer believes in the rule of law, why would anybody follow it? We do not have enough law enforcement to police a general population that doesn't believe that the law is working for anybody.
I was going to say, in regards to the midterms, maybe that's what the uniforms are for, but the uniforms are for three years from now. So that's yeah. So the midterms are going to be interesting. They're clearly trying to keep their hold on the House. We've said this before, and just as a brief reminder, I think right now the Epstein files are as close to everything as you can get. I have no illusions about them toppling the government, but if Trump loses his MAGA base, he's in very serious trouble, and that's a kink in the armor that allows us to maybe finally see some forward motion with him. The reality is, the discharge petition is once you have the discharge petition, senators will have to commit to a yes or no. I think they're probably going to vote yes. Commander thinks they're going to vote no and take the hit. Either way, they take a hit. If they vote yes, they make their reelection a little easier. They make their lives working with Trump a certifiable nightmare. Trump can still veto it, and Trump probably will. But if he does, he is now committed to paper that he doesn't want the Epstein files released, which he has said repeatedly he's going to release. And my hope is that that's a deal breaker for a majority of his base. But enough seem to have moved on, at least for now. And there's been enough over first Israel and now Ukraine. We'll see. So I don't know. But that's what we're keeping an eye on, sort of long term, and for the next couple of months, and then eventually going into the midterms. And we'll see if the Democrats can at least get the House, which if they can, we're going to see another question, which is, will Mike Johnson actually yield the floor, or will he refuse to seat the Democrats? And refuse to yield meaning the Republicans will seize control of Congress despite the fact that they lost and were voted out, which is a possibility since he's already not seating a Democrat as of this moment, so that the discharge petition can't be signed. That's another power that it's sort of like, for how long? Forever. My understanding is that the way the procedure works is the Speaker of the House has to willingly hand the reins over to the next Speaker. He also has to be the one who seats congressmen. So let's say a whole bunch of House representatives, I said congressmen, I meant representatives. Let's say a bunch of representatives lose their seats to Democrats. If he refuses to seat the Democrats, and then refuses to hand over control to the Democratic Speaker of the House, that I'm aware of, he remains through, well, how does he because Congress resets, it's a brand new Congress. I'm gonna have to do a deep dive in this. My understanding is it's been explained to me, but that doesn't make any sense because it's actually a new Congress. The whole old Congress is technically dissolved. That's why they have to go over the new rules. That's why they have to
complain about. You complain about conversations with me, and then having to try and go sleep through nightmares. Who's laying out the nightmare scenarios now. I'm just pointing out, hey, here are some indicators, and here are some of the things that those indicators could mean. Doesn't necessarily mean that that is what they mean. Just these things are happening, and they make sense. All of these parts make sense if this speculation is true. And now you're talking about how they're going to just completely blatantly overthrow all history and tradition of Congress, which, I mean, they kind of sort of have been slowly over the years, but they're going to do it all at once now, and do it in such a way that there's absolutely no way to obfuscate it. There's absolutely no way to say it isn't actually happening, and they're going to do it all at once.
Yes, sir.
Who's the doomer now?
Me, sir. Sorry. Good
I don't want to hear your complaints. I don't want to hear your complaints about anything. When I talk about how Earth's magnetic field has been weakening, that weakening appears to be accelerating. The movement of the northern or of the poles is accelerating and has moved now from Canada over to Russia. And the fact that small solar storms are having a disproportionately large impact upon Earth, that we're getting solar storms far beyond the power of the solar flares that generated them. Buckle up, because our electric grid is in danger. I don't want to hear about you saying, great, now I have to go to sleep with that in my brain. Anymore.
That's
no
fair.
more.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because I'm pointing out actual, I'm pointing out actual facts of, hey, these are things that are happening, and then offering some possible speculation. You're jumping straight to the speculation, going, no, they're going to freaking overthrow all of this shit all at once, and it's going to be in your face, blatant, where nobody can ignore it, and it's going to ignite the whole Civil War.
I didn't say ignite the whole Civil War. I just said topple the House of Representatives. I mean, there's a difference. Just saying. You're putting words in my mouth. I think that's a little unfair.
Okay. So what was the question that you were going to ask me? You said you were going to ask me a question. Did you ask me a question?
I did. Well, no, I asked you about the, it was just about
because my answer is 42. Oh yeah, you asked me about the DLA and what that.
Yeah, the whole thing we've been talking about for the last half hour. Remember that? Yeah, that was the question.
Well,
oh God! Between the two of us,
you have so completely sidetracked me with the overthrow and complete collapse of the House of Representatives, and almost a third of our government, probably one of the more important. Well, I guess it's technically all equally important, because the government doesn't really function without all of its parts. But yeah, you sidetracked me with all of that, going straight to.
Oh, so now it's my
the
fault.
Complete
Okay.
doom report. Yeah. So
well,
my answer's 42.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. We now have the answer. It is officially 42. It was. I've heard it said 42 many times, but it's not official until In Time certifies it, and we are now saying that the answer is 42. We will get back to you with the question on a future show, as yet to be determined. Xander, any final thoughts before we go? I'm not sure. I'm nervous. Any final thoughts before we go, other than everything's my fault?
Yeah, it's your fault for all of the political drama and collapse that's coming because of your doomer porn.
Okay.
And the natural disaster portion, I guess I can claim responsibility for, because while yes, the poles are constantly moving, they move every year, which is why they have to do updates to the magnetic declination tables of geological maps and topographical maps. However, that movement is accelerating. We also do know that the Earth's poles do flip from time to time. And we also know that we are in the process of that happening now. We also have measured geomagnetic jerks of the core speeding up and slowing down, and Earth does speed up and slow down naturally. I guess it comes down to the exact same argument with climate change, when we keep saying, oh, well, of course the climate has changed constantly throughout Earth all the time. Yeah, but not this quickly.
Yeah.
So when it comes to our the geomagnetic disturbances in the force of magnetism,
Very clever.
They're
I saw what you
accelerating
said
and
there.
moving much faster than they have historically, at least for the last 6,000 years. Historically, they're moving up, and things that shouldn't be making auroras, halfway down the visible from halfway down the United States, from a simple level 2 geomagnetic storm, are now happening. So bear that in mind, that Earth's magnetic field is weakening. We've lost something like 20% of its strength in the last 20 years, and it's accelerating. So just bear that in mind. Those are things that are actually happening. And does it mean that you should be worried? Probably not, because these are geological things. And so, I mean, it does happen rather rapidly on a geological timescale. But on a human timescale, they still move pretty damn slowly. Just things, again, they're just indicators. Just look at the indicators and just pay attention, because they will telegraph things that may potentially come.
And I will wildly speculate on said things, because that's my job.
Yes. Yes, you just continue wildly speculating, straight to the speculation. We're going to have a Carrington level event, off of just an X27 flare instead of an X50 flare, which is estimated to be the Carrington level event. That's going to take down most of the world's electric grids, and humanity is going to be set back about 500-600 years, because of how entitled most of the world is now, and how dependent everything is on electricity. So it's going to devastate everybody, and it's going to take a lot of time to rebuild. But I would think that the level of knowledge that existed in the world, we should be able to recover a little more quickly. But then I read studies about human desperation and what actually happened during times of human desperation, and I don't know if I'm entirely reassured.
All right.
No, you can jump straight to that, and I'll just point out the indicators.
All right. Sage, remind me not to ask Xandring any more final thoughts at the end of the show. Just put that. Yeah, thank you. Just put that.
And people wonder why you go to ask me a question and then completely interrupt me or say any final thoughts and then go off on your own tirade for your own final thoughts, so that we actually miss mine.
Yeah, it's deliberate. It's absolutely deliberate. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Broadcast Cat. Yes. All right. So I will try to get those out in early in the AM. So far, it's at least Eastern Standard, 9 p.m. every Tuesday and Thursdays are scheduled shows, and if we can get those, at least get the show up by 11 a.m. I think that's a big help to everybody. So I will work on that. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for the donations and super chats. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to, the only other interesting, so let's see, the previous record for Shutdown was 34 days. 34 days is the previous record for a shutdown. It was set by President Donald Trump in his first term, so we are not even yet at 5th. The previous record was held by the Clinton administration. We won't get into that. We won't get into what happened during that shutdown, but that was the shutdown where the cigar and everything else. We will see. Trump may have, but before this is done, the first and second spot for longest shutdown. The Dems have shown no signs of giving up. And a lot of Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, in terms of, she's in the House, but a lot of conservatives, I should say, are coming out and saying, no, we don't want to see our health care numbers go up, because the last budget proposed by the Republicans, that was a continuing resolution to just go fund the government for another 3 months, did cut Obama or allow Obama cuts to Obama tax breaks to expire for health insurance, and a lot of people are saying no, we really don't want that. So the Democrats are holding firm to, we won't pass a bill that doesn't extend those, like Trump has extended his tax cuts and that were supposed to be temporary also, and yada, yada, yada. And the Republicans are saying, no, those are cuts. They're supposed to expire, or those were just temporary. They're supposed to expire, and we're going to raise health insurance, and that's where the fight is. And I don't see anybody budging anytime soon. And the master negotiator is sitting there trying to figure out how many lives he has to save if he's going to get into heaven. I'm not kidding. So that's where we stand. I look forward to seeing you all on Thursday, day after tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern, with Commander Lance McMillan. My guess is we're going to have more to discuss then, although with the government shut down, with the federal courts slowing down, things have been... what are you going to do when your clock hits 500? That's a good question. Things have been slowing down, and we haven't had quite the crazy. I'm expecting, I think we're going to get some very unfortunate, to say the least, releases from the Supreme Court. I forget whether it was I think it was the Guardian, pulled nearly every federal judge in the U.S. and definitely every judge who has seen any, who has heard any Trump case, was split roughly 50-50, Democrat-appointed judges, Republican-appointed judges, on the status of the judiciary in the United States and the leadership of the Supreme Court, and the general conclusion was overwhelmingly that this Supreme Court has been undermining judges' abilities to act because everything's being done on the shadow docket without being explained, so nobody knows their reasoning, which is kind of the point, because they can't defend their decisions. They know that. Their decisions are illegal. They know that. They do that on the shadow docket and say, well, just follow follow what we've done. And they're like, well, yeah, but we have to understand how and why, because we have to be able to justify our decisions. We can't just sit there and say, well, the U.S. Supreme Court set a precedent, and so... this is common law. It has to be justified. So we'll see. We're expecting a couple of biggies from the Supreme Court. They're back up and running, and a number of things have hit the emergency docket, and we're expecting to hear this week and in the next coming weeks. So other than that, next scheduled show is
other than that, other than the fact that the Constitutional Republic is facing a bit of an existential crisis, where it seems everybody seems to be undermining it for their own political gains and their own control. Just relax. We're good.
Oh yeah, and measles has returned. 𝐒𝐬𝐜𝐿 has pointed out that measles is no longer eradicated in the U.S. Measles has officially returned, and but is it just Kansas? I don't know. So hey, you got a little bad news and some more bad news.
I was about to say, and.
yeah. I know. I couldn't really finagle that one. That one was just. I was like,
yep. You're just.
I couldn't find.
I guess be positive.
Yeah.
Manifest the change you want to see. Actually, you need to be the change that you wish to see in the world, because that's the way things usually end up changing, at least for the better. There's been plenty of very dramatic, terrible changes that have happened rather quickly, but usually good, long sustained changes, because people become the change they want to see in the world. So, be active in your government. It was intended to be a government of the people, by the people, to be for the people, and it isn't anymore. So maybe work to change that.
I couldn't agree more. And with that, thank you all very much, and we will see you Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern for Downtime. Have a good night, all.